Hey, a little rattlesnake. I'm in beautiful Laguna Beach, California. Beautiful day for a ride. Nice and cloudy and cool, about 60 degrees. And I'm out here on my Orbea Rise, my 2021 Orbea Rise. A bunch of you have been asking for some sort of bike check video, so I'll go over all the details of the bike today. Alright, so this is my 3-month review of this bike. I've owned it since March, and it's June right now. I've had probably 300 miles or so on this bike so far. It's been mulleted the entire time. I have a 27.5 wheel in the back. This bike normally comes as a 29er, 140 travel in the rear. I've upped it to 160. I've done that by using a different shock. This shock is a 8.5 by 2.5 inch shock. That basically extends the eye to eye by about 6 millimeters over stock. What that does is it pushes the rear triangle down, okay? And there's plenty of clearance there to allow you to do that, but it pushes the rear triangle down. And then when you put a smaller wheel, you end up getting a very similar geometry to the stock bike. It's great for all mountain riding. I've done plenty of jumps, drops. It does basically everything. The geometry of this bike is a lot more aggressive now. The head tube angle is at about 64 degrees, and the bottom bracket is about 338, 339 millimeters, a little bit higher than stock. You could change that. That varies significantly based off of your tire selection. I have a 2.4 DHRII in the back and a 2.5 Assegai. If I run a 2.5 or 2.6 in the back, it'll change it, half a degree based off of that. It'll also adjust your bottom bracket. So it's really dependent on tire choice. I've actually lengthened the overall wheelbase slightly. I think I measured it at about 1210. The reach, however, when you slacken things out, the reach was shortened significantly. This bike comes with a 450 reach. This is a size medium, by the way. It comes with a 450 reach. But that 450 reach, I think, is based off of the fork at 140. So with the fork at 160, that shortened the reach to like 435 or something like that. So it's a much shorter reach. 435 to 440, I'm just estimating. Reach is kind of hard to measure, so I just tried my best to do so. So I think it's between 435 to 440. I've compensated slightly by running a slightly longer stem. This bike came with a 40 millimeter stem, so I'm running a 50 millimeter stem. And I moved my seat kind of back a little bit. So now it fits really comfortable for me. I'm 5'8", and I have pretty long arms, so I normally prefer a longer bike. I have a Specialized Enduro size S3. The reach is like 468, so it's significantly longer than this bike. But on an e-bike, I actually wanted something a little bit shorter. Intentionally, I wanted something a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter, because I want the bike to feel more playful. And this bike does just that, If you have a big, long reach bike, especially on an e-bike, it really takes away some of the playfulness of that bike, how flickable it is, how easy it is to change directions. All those things are a big downside of having a big, heavy e-bike. So I think for a acoustic bike, it's great to get a longer bike with more reach. But I believe that on a e-bike, you should get a shorter reach bike to make that big, heavy e-bike a little bit more playful, a little bit more manageable. That's my opinion after owning a YT Decoy. Pretty long bike, pretty big bike, heavy bike. And it was much harder to change directions and stuff like that. This one feels so much more playful. This one feels much more natural, like a regular bike. And that was kind of what I was after when I bought this bike. I wanted this thing to feel as natural as possible, to be reasonably light. Right now as it sits, it's about 42 pounds. The chainstay actually shortened slightly from 445 to around 442, 443. The seat tube slackened out quite a bit to about 75 and a half or so, 75 to 75 and a half. So currently I'm running 35 millimeter Ibis S35 carbon wheels in the back, and in the front is an old Ibis 942 carbon wheel that I had on a previous bike. XTR brakes, that's all stock. It did come with that Fox 36. The only thing I did was I updated the stickers to the orange factory stickers. I really didn't like the stickers that came with it. Updated the shock, longer dropper post. This is a 175 dropper. It originally came with a 150 dropper. Updated the stem to a 50 millimeter stem. It's a Deity Copperhead stem. The cranks are normally E13 carbon cranks, but E13, they had a recall. They had an issue with their with all their cranks where they did not put any Loctite on the caps that locks it or holds it in place. So my carbon cranks fell out during a ride. It's pretty bad. I could have gotten hurt, but E13 was nice enough to send me some aluminum cranks in the meantime, and when the carbon ones are back in stock, they'll send me the updated carbon ones. But these aluminum ones, they're not bad. They're about 80-90 grams heavier than the carbon ones, so there's not a significant weight difference between the aluminum and carbon. So if you run aluminum, it's not a big deal. The drivetrain is completely stock. It's the full XTR drivetrain, full XTR brakes, race face, 780 millimeter carbon bars, race face grips, Shimano lever for the dropper posts. That works pretty good so far. Let's see, what else is there that I've done on this bike? Oh, I wrapped the bottom bracket area. Normally it's like a green. I wrapped it with some automotive black automotive protective tape, and that really does a good job. It kind of helped hide the motor a little bit. It looks a little bit better when it's all black. Normally it's green right here, and it really contrasts with the black motor, so the motor really sticks out. But if you make it all black like this, it really hides the motor a little bit, and I think that looks a lot better this way. I might wrap the entire chainstay black. I'm not sure right now because it's kind of like an off-white, off-green color. So I might wrap that black. It only took me about an hour to wrap this entire back area, bottom bracket area, so it wasn't too bad. So one of the things you want to do when you get this bike, it comes with 180 rotors. So I upped the front to 203 millimeter rotors, and I changed the pads to metallic pads. It comes with resin pads, and stopping power is not terrific, especially if you do a lot of steeps. With the metallic pads, 180 or 203 rotor front, 180 rear, plenty of stopping power for a person my weight. I'm about 150 pounds. This DHRII has a really large bottom-out bumper compared to the previous models. It's massive, okay? And that really gives it quite a bit of a ramp up towards the end. So if you case a jump or you bottom out really hard, it feels nice and progressive thanks to that big old bumper. I've had some other shocks with some much smaller bumpers where it feels more like you're kind of hitting a wall, but with this one, it's nice and progressive towards the end. The leverage rate of this leverage curve of this bike is actually pretty progressive, so you could definitely get away with a coil shock. No problems with the coil whatsoever. Much more supple off the top, a little bit better mid-stroke than most air shocks, and with that bottom out bumper, you still get that you still get that ramp up towards the end. So I've ordered the range extender on this bike since February. Right now it's June, and I'm supposed to get it any week now. Orbea said it shipped, it's on its way here. So once I get the range extender, I'll be able to do 9,000 feet, 10,000 feet of climbing. Right now, the most that I've squeezed out of this battery is 5,900 feet in about 27 miles. So 27 miles, 5,900 feet. And I did that in about 3 hours and 10 minutes of moving time. So I did all that with the standard battery. I'm not the most fit rider, but this bike, the kind of the secret sauce of this bike is when you're cruising or when you're going on flat roads, like you could turn the motor off, okay? You can turn the motor off and there's barely any drag. It feels like you're riding a regular bike, and you just, so there's a lot of times where you're just pedaling normally, you know, with the motor off, and it doesn't feel like you're dragging along or anything. It feels very natural. So you could turn it off a lot of times, you know, during many of the descents. It doesn't slow you down. The old EP8 motor used to slow you down, so I always used to keep it on because you know, just cruising down flat sections, flat areas, it would always drag quite a bit. This motor, and plus the lightweight of the bike, it just doesn't drag much at all. So another cool thing I did on this bike is there's this steep trail, steep and long, grueling uphill climb called Maxxis. It's in Aliso Viejo. It's called Maxxis Trail, and it's one of the worst climbs around. It's maybe 800 feet of climbing, and it's steep, and it's a terrible climb. So I actually tried climbing that trail with a bunch of my acoustic buddies. They were on acoustic, I was on this bike. I climbed the entire thing with the motor off, okay? So I cleared the Maxxis climb with the motor off, and the alarming thing about it is my time climbing that day was faster than I've done on my acoustics for the past since 2017. Okay, I don't know what happened that day. I must have had a lot of energy that day, but I was able to keep up with my more fit climbing buddies who were on acoustic bikes, and I was able to clear that climb. You cannot possibly do that with the old E8000 motor. I think part of this is due to the lightweight of this bike, you know, and also another part of it is my acoustic bikes are very heavy. My Enduro is you know, it's a 34 pound bike, so this one's a 42 pound bike, so it's significantly, I mean, it's not that much heavier, you know. Okay, so regarding the shock, it's a 8.5 by 2.5 inch shock, which is basically like a 216 by 63 millimeter shock. What I've done is I put in one offset bushing just down here. Okay, it's a 8 millimeter offset bushing. It basically shortens the effective eye to eye to about from 216 to about 214. What that does is it helps slacken the head tube just a little bit more. I ran it without it, and what happens is this linkage, it gets really close to each other. Okay, because remember, it's pushing the rear wheel down a little bit. Okay, and what that does is it gets this link really close to each other. And right now there is enough room right now. Okay, you see that there's about 1 or 2 millimeters of space there. If I were to remove this offset bushing, it's going to be almost touching. Okay, maybe like 1/4 of a millimeter of space. So if you remove the offset bushing, it's going to get very, very close. So by putting an offset bushing, it gives it a lot more room here. So I think it's the way to go is to put one offset bushing in the back, just to give you a little bit more room back here, because you know these frames, these linkages, these shocks, they all have different tolerances. So just to be safe, I would put one offset bushing just in the back. If I were to put 2 offset bushings, it would slacken this bike even further to about 63.5, and I think 63.5 to 64.5 is really the sweet spot for me, for the type of riding I do. 63.5 to 64.5 is the sweet spot. So after about 3 months of ownership and about 300 miles, I highly recommend this bike. It's a wonderful bike. I think it's beautiful. I think it's one of the more elegant designs. It looks very much like a natural, like a regular bike, very close to a regular bike. Handles very much like a regular bike, lightweight. You throw it around, you can pick it up, load it on your rack or in your truck, so easily. If you need to hike a bike, you put it over your shoulders, pick it up and go. It's not a problem, you know. Battery's been excellent, even without the range extender. Like I mentioned, I did 5,900 feet and about 27 miles on this bike without a range extender, mostly eco mode, eco and trail. It's fast, it's capable, it's flickable, it turns in really nicely. It's just I think the overall package is brilliant on this bike. It's kind of a very unique bike, I think. Not a lot of bikes does everything this bike can do. And putting that mullet in the back, putting that 27.5 rear wheel in the back really allows it to corner, to carve better, just be able to change directions a little bit faster, I think. I really like that mullet in the back. I think e-bikes, especially with heavier rear ends, definitely would benefit with a mullet in the back.
Right, so the last thing I want to talk about is the actual motor, the EP8 RS motor. It has plenty of power, especially in Profile 2. Profile 1's pretty weak. If you want to do like crazy range, you do Profile 1. But Profile 2 is the way to go. Has pretty good amount of power. If you want a little bit more power, if you want to unlock the motor, it is possible with a software called Stun Locker. You're able to open up that motor, turn it into a standard EP8, get the full 85 Newton meters if you choose. If you do decide to do so, I do know some people who have successfully done it. Actually, there's a handful of people who have successfully done it. No issues whatsoever. In terms of battery life, once you do unlock it, you don't have to use all that power all the time. So, you know, if you're using a lot of trail and eco modes and occasionally using that boost, you're still going to get excellent range. I know a few people who've got even better range than I have with a fully unlocked motor. But definitely that'll void your warranty. So I don't recommend that you do that. But it is possible to do that with this bike. So with that in mind, with that said, this bike now ticks pretty much almost all the boxes. You know, if you want that full, powerful, full 85 Newton meters, you could have that. If you want a bigger, longer lasting battery, you could buy that range extender. It's lightweight, it's flickable. It really does almost everything well, very well, like I mentioned before. So anyways, if you have any questions on the bike, just leave it in the comments. I'll try to get back to every single question. If you want to see some riding footage and some more things that I do on this bike and a few other bikes, please subscribe to my channel. All right, see ya.